Hey guys, welcome back to a brand new episode. So I got some mood lighting here. I got this candelabra. Because this episode we are talking about the movie Tarot. Now, this is a newer movie, and I'm just going to be straight up with y'all. It was alright. We're still going to talk about it because I watched it. Why not? But it's kind of just your run-of-the-mill slasher movie. It's enjoyable. It's still fun and all that. Got some great kills in it. So watch it for that reason. I don't see a problem with that. So it was directed by Anna Hallberg and Spencer Cohen, and this is both their debut film. Box office, it grossed about $20.2 million in the US, and then worldwide 49.1. So not bad. Its budget was $8 million, and it was released in May of this year. So the basic premise for this is friends unwittingly unleash an unspeakable evil trapped within a cursed deck of tarot cards. One by one, they come face to face with fate, racing against death to escape the future foretold in their readings. Now, great premise. I ain't knocking the storyline of it at all. I think where my issue lies is it's kind of corny. I don't think that's a bad thing. I don't. It's a slasher movie. At its core, this is a slasher film. So the fact that I don't necessarily personally feel for the characters all that much feels appropriate for a slasher film, you know? They kind of have one job. They do it very, very well in this movie. So we'll just say that. It is starring Harriet Slater as Haley, Adane Bradley as Grant, Jacob Batalon as Paxton, Arantika Vandanapu. I believe I'm pronouncing these names correctly. It's a very diverse cast. Paige, Wolfgang Novogratz plays Lucas, Humberly Gonzalez plays Madeline, Sonsika Milanovic, she plays the astrologer. The horror actors in this, I think, are very interesting, I'm not gonna lie, and it seems kind of CGI-ish at points. I'm sure they probably use CGI to enhance certain things, but for having actual character actors play these monsters and whatnot, it does well for me. Olwen Foyera, she plays Alma. James Swanton is the hermit, and he also is the hanged man, I believe. A few different of the people, the characters. Stasa Nikolic, she plays the countess. So they have different actors for the different tarot faces, which I love that. I love just the premise that we're going for with this. You know what I mean? And it's also based on the 1992 novel called Horoscope. Sounds interesting. By Nicholas Adams. So there's a book. If you really enjoyed it, you can check that out. It was negatively reviewed by critics, but it did overall well with the general public. So we'll check some reviews at the end. I'm interested to see what reviews might say for it. My main criticism of it is that the dialogue was very corny, and some of the acting was a little bit but it was overall an enjoyable movie. I would see this being more enjoyable in a theater, watching it with friends. It's just that energy, and I feel a lot of slasher films, that's the type of environment you need to see them in, you know? I'm kind of liking this new lighting a bit. Should we just use candles from now on? Kind of nice and glowy. The kills in this, though, are really good. I'm not gonna lie. They're really, really good. I do have the synopsis printed out right here, so we can kind of just go through it, and I'll give my thoughts. This isn't going to be a very long or super in-depth video because, no shade, but it's just a slasher movie. So is there really much to go deep into? It follows pretty much all of the cues of a slasher film. And to be honest, within the first 15 minutes, it tells you exactly what's going to happen. I like a movie like that. I'm not going to lie. Give me everything right up front. and then I can piece it together as we go. That's very much kind of like Midsommar, where, the tapestry, it tells you exactly what's about to happen, but it means nothing in the moment. So, it starts off with a group of college friends: Haley, Grant, Paxton, Paige, Madeline, and Lucas, and Elise. Who plays Elise then? My gosh, there's so many actors. They all rent a mansion in the Catskills for Elise's birthday, with tension in the group following Haley and Grant's recent breakup. I'm not gonna lie, Haley and Grant are kind of the most annoying characters for me, which is, depending on how you want to look at it, a little unfortunate, because they're the only two that survive. Also, I know Gooby hasn't popped in lately. With the candles up and around, I don't really want him to. But he sends his love. He's sleeping right next to me. He's a tired boy. Haley ends up reading all of their horoscopes with a box of strange old tarot cards discovered in the basement. And now they're like, oh, they're clearly handmade. And I think the art on them is actually pretty cool. I bet you somewhere you can buy a recreation tarot deck from this movie. I bet you can. Although it's just the major arcana. So, yeah. Also, the layout that they do is very different to the layout that, I do and whatnot with my tarot. So it was fun to see the different setup and whatnot. I like this setup and how they do it. I wonder, maybe we'll have to try it sometime. So Elise gets the High Priestess, Lucas gets the Hermit, Madeline the Hanged Man, Paige the Magician, and Paxton the Fool. Grant receives the Devil, and Haley herself gets the Death card. And they give a big long explanation and everything for each one. Haley, she's good. She's good. She knows what to say. So that's really interesting, and that's right off this bat. We start with that. And then once that scene wraps up, that's when you actually get the title card of the movie. I kind of love that it was literally 15 minutes in when they're like, oh, by the way, the movie's named Tarot. So the next day, the group returns to campus. Elise is attacked by a monstrous version of the High Priestess. Now, there's a lot of cheap jump scares in this, and I imagine in a theater it would be good. There was a few that got me to jump a little bit in bed when I was watching it last night. But it's, once again, would be probably a way more fun experience actually in the theater. But just watching it in bed with Goo, I wasn't too spooked. This kill, though, is they're all pretty brutal, I'm not gonna lie. Some are rather quick, and then others, you really get a long look at it. This one was creepy, and it was also just, really brutal. The ladder being crushed down onto her, ugh. I don't know why, it kind of gave me the vibe of, the sister from Pet Sematary, when she's all, crooked and whatnot. But yeah, so the High Priestess completely just bludgeons her to death. Of course, they put up the tape and whatnot, but after the first two murders, the cops aren't oh, it's suspicious. They say that there's no foul play, but they put crime scene tape up when they find this girl's body. I don't know. But yeah, so the next day, the friends find out what happened to her, and of course, they're all super sad, mourning their friend, and two of them are walking home later, that evening. Lucas, once he drops one of the friends off at her place, he starts to walk home, and he's heading towards the train station when he sees the Hermit, which was his card. This one was pretty freaky, on the old train tracks and then in the train yard. That was pretty creepy. Also just the light, how it kept disappearing and coming after him. The kills in this are the most interesting part, which that's the point of a slasher film, So it stays true in that sense. This is a slasher movie. But technically not really killed by the Hermit, spooked by the Hermit, and he runs in front of a speeding train. So that's how Lucas dies. And that one got me. I was like, oh! And of course, by like this point, you're catching on that each of them are dying by the tarot reading that they got. It even like echoes right before the death is about to happen, which is, I'm thankful for that because there was no way I was going to remember what all of their freaking readings worth for the entire movie. This whole section is just a big exposition type of thing. There's a lot of it in this movie. A lot of scenes of going to different characters to be explained stuff and to make the whole story make sense. So, thinking that like something's up, the group of friends go to this woman who they find online. Her name is Alma Astron, an expert on tarot that they found online. She reveals that the cards belong to an astrologer who in the late 18th century served a Hungarian count and would predict the future for him. Now, I kind of love this whole little like side story. After a reading that his pregnant wife and child would die in childbirth came true, the grief-stricken count ordered his men to kill the astrologer's daughter as revenge. The astrologer, enraged with grief, doomed the count and his friends to death with her cards, then unalived herself and cursed her deck to kill anyone who used it. The cards are responsible for several tarot reading group massacres, including Alma's own group of friends. She was the sole survivor as she didn't do a reading on herself. Alma urges them to destroy the deck, which is still at the Catskills mansion. So, they take a little ride on over there, and they're very faithful that whoever's driving is a great driver because multiple occasions where they all could have just been wiped out at once. There's also a lot of humor sprinkled out throughout this movie with just the friend group in general. Sometimes it seems a little bit like forced, but other than like the really corny dialogue, at least the connection that you feel between them all seems a little genuine at least. So while driving to the Catskills mansion, their car breaks down on a bridge. Now I really enjoyed this scene, kind of, and then this is like the lamer death of them all with the hanged man, but the initial fright of it with them all in the car is really well done in my opinion. And the hanged man kills Madeline. Now, he just kind of like ropes her and strings her up as she's running. So, I mean, it's still a gnarly kill. But in the grand scheme of the entire movie, I would say it's the more subdued one. So, terrified, Paxton decides to return to campus alone. Paxton is also like the major comedic relief of this movie on several occasions, but is stalked by the Fool. This is also a good scene when he's first being stalked by the Fool. It's done well when it's standing like far away from him and he's just watching it like bend over into a weird angle and then like there are some really kind of eerie scenes in this. And he gets attacked in the elevator. Terrifying way to go. Absolutely terrifying. More to come on that though later. Duly note that he died off camera. So Haley, Grant, and Paige then return to the mansion, but they can't burn the cards because they're cursed, essentially. Alma comes in and has to explain all that again as she's just like the mystical old person that tells the young kids what to do. Alma summons the astrologer's spirit, but the astrologer does a reading on her instead and like brutally kills Alma. You feel for her. You really do. I was hoping that she would make it, but she was a little foolish to request her to come in like that. But also a good scene. And the astrologer, like, makeup and all that is really creepy. So Alma gets like completely crushed up and then she gets lifted basically into the ceiling and then dropped down in front of the friends as they're running out, and she has 6 swords stuck in her because she got the 6 of swords. Ugh. And her body just lays there. Paige, so they're running all around the place, and Paige gets separated from them. Now, I'm not going to lie to you. Paige's character annoyed me a lot. I'm not going to lie. But she gets the best death in this whole movie. her card was the Magician. And so it starts off with her in a box and he's like stabbing a saw into it and she's avoiding it. There's enough room for her to move around. And then the box gets smaller and smaller. And then he saws her in half. And the angle that the camera is looking, it's like resting right up by her head. So you just see her torso and then the box just splits open and you see the Magician and like the crowd and the lights and everything. It's such a good shot, like very kind of almost artistically done. But yeah, the best death by far is the Magician one, in my opinion at least. So Haley then decides that if she reads the astrologer's horoscope, that all of this might end. It works. But while she's trying to get to that, Grant is literally being dragged away by the devil, like into hell. That also is a really cool scene for me. You get visual representation of like demons and the devil, but also the gates of hell. And it's very chaotic, very, just really well done. Like, very good visual representation of what you think the gates of hell would look like. So Haley does a reading on the astrologer and she gets the death card. While all this happens, we did find out earlier on that Haley used tarot cards to help navigate the grief she had when her mother was sick with cancer. So this final scene, it's not just the astrologer being kind of forced to let go of the pain and of this anger towards what happened towards her daughter, but that also goes for Haley and the grief and pain that she holds towards remembering her mother. It's very corny the way that they do it, but it does at least bring some kind of like emotional connection into it. And yeah, it works. And the astrologer's spirit is burned along with the deck. The deck finally lights up and they burn individually. Haley and Grant, they meet back up after all that. And they're leaving thinking like, well, how are we going to get out of here? And then Paxton shows up out of nowhere. And that was also in his tarot reading from earlier. It said that you will show up for your friends in an unexpected way. And it was that. They thought he was dead, but oh, he's not really. He just drove right there. It actually turns out that he was saved at the last second by his roommate, Todd. Todd is my favorite character in this entire movie. They don't even show him. He's mentioned once, and then you hear his voice being like, dude, what are you doing? When he opens the elevator door. It's my favorite character. I don't know why, just like the mention of Todd, it made me cackle every time, dude. So, yeah, and that's the movie. And they, they're still grieving the loss of their friends, but they survived. So that's that. We're going to check the reviews. Alright, so the top critical review gave it 3 stars. I am a huge fan of tarot cards, and I've done readings myself for several years, so I was very excited to see this movie based on the premise alone. The plot was original, and I appreciated how the tarot cards were actually brought to life in this movie. The effects were great, and the tarot avatars were truly creepy. And if I ever saw them in person, I would absolutely lose it. But the way the scares were executed in the movie fell short for me. Some moments got my heart pumping a little faster from the suspense, but there was no actual fear. The characters themselves were a little grating, and the movie could have benefited from some better acting and writing. I don't know as though it was the acting part, but writing, maybe, yeah. On a personal note, the interpretations of the cards themselves were a bit of a stretch. And while tarot is largely interpretative, I think the movie could have stuck closer to the traditional meaning and still made an impact. I also wish we could have seen more of the cards come to life. I mean, there could be no, not really. It kind of ended. There's kind of no way there could be a sequel, right? Highest rated one, 5 stars. I love scary movies, and I had been waiting for quite a while to be able to rent this movie at an affordable price. I mean, it's on Netflix, so you can watch it there for free. When we did watch the movie, it was so good, so scary, that I honestly don't want to ever have any real tarot cards. They almost seem like they are as scary and dangerous as a Ouija board. For me, at least. Okay. This movie had some predictable and scary parts. However, there were several times in the movie that I did not expect what happened. It was exciting to experience some of the scenes to happen as they did. It was scary. It was very good. And if I recommended renting it, buying it, or just watch it, it's a great scary movie. Okay. Okay. Oh, and it says, and I recommend renting it, buying it, or just watch it. So, didn't go too in depth, but that's how they feel. Anyways, you guys, I definitely want to know your thoughts if you've seen this movie before. One of you had asked me a while back if I would think about doing it, so why not? I know, I do tarot every now and then, so it was interesting. I agree, I would like to see more of the tarot, and I think better writing, but I don't know if it can go on. That's something that, storyline, producers, whatever, they're going to have to figure it out. Not my job. Anyways, you guys, thank you so much for tuning on in to our little candlelit movie review here. Goo gives his thanks from the floor. He's very tired. But yeah, thank you guys so much. I truly do appreciate you. Definitely let me know your thoughts about the movie, about everything. And yeah, make sure you like and subscribe. All that, yada yada. Thank you so much, guys. And I will catch you in the next one. Take care.